It's Tuesday, and I can't wait to tell you about the new Throne of Eldraine spoilers. Welcome to another installment of my spoiler videos. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. I hope that the day finds you well. We are here again to talk about more interesting cards from what is shaping up to be one of my favorite sets of all time, let alone the last few years. Honestly, I am absolutely loving Throne of Eldraine. There is so much flavor and goodness in this set that I can't help myself. I just want to keep talking about all of these cards. So, with no further ado, let us start to talk about the cards. We're going to start out with a big old rock flinger. We've got Brimstone Trebuchet. This is 1 red, 2 colorless for an artifact creature wall. So there is actually walls for the big bad wolf to blow down. So we've got Defender and Reach. Tap it to do 1 damage to each opponent. And whenever a knight enters the battlefield under your control, untap Brimstone Trebuchet. So obviously, this is a siege weapon. Now, it makes perfect sense to have siege weapons in a world of castles, right? I mean, it's very straightforward. Honestly, the flavor of a knight reloading this thing doesn't 100% make sense to me. I look at it and go, okay. And it dealing 1 damage to each opponent when it's just flinging 1 rock, again, I feel like the flavor of this one doesn't tie together perfectly, but it's been a while since we've seen something like this. I mean, back in the original days, a long time ago, antiquity style, we had like grape shot catapult, right? And that would do damage to a flyer. Well, this one does damage to your opponents. I like the fact that while it doesn't do damage to flyers, it does have reach and can block flyers. So in another way, it is firing stones. You want to fly over my castle? Get wrecked. So, I mean, in terms of the artwork, we have an interesting perspective here where we're down on the ground. We're very low to the ground with this angle, looking upwards at the trebuchet. It is in mid-fling where you can see the arm has whipped forwards and released its payload being a gigantic flaming rock or whatever it is that's set on fire. It might be a giant flaming sack of something intended to set buildings on fire, whatever it is. You can actually, weirdly enough, see another rock. If you look up above the castle, you can see one flying off in another direction. So presumably they have multiple of these, which would explain the damage to each opponent, but then each trebuchet would do that. So again, it kind of falls apart. Overall, the artwork doesn't excite me, but I like the card conceptually. I look at the artwork, it's like, okay, you've got the one knight who's like, fire, with his sword out, right? Maybe he hacked the rope. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they do it. How much rope do you go through firing the trebuchets? Like, that's a good question. Do you have to slash a piece of rope every time these fire? Or do you pull some kind of lever? That's something that I don't actually know. Moving on, we've got an incredible green card. Once Upon a Time. 1 green, 1 colorless. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you can play it for free. If you get this in your starting hand, it's a give me. It's a freebie. That's dirty. Free magic spells are gross. So, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I love it. I absolutely love this card. I'm a heavy mono green boy. So this right here fits perfectly for me. I think this is a fantastic card. And the artwork is really cool. It shows like, I'm not sure if this is like a human knight with some kind of metal helmet on his head and he's looking away from us, or if this is some kind of like half man, half beast warrior. I kind of feel like it's a knight charging off on a quest though. The artwork is really inviting and off-putting at the same time. I really like the colors, but it just looks like this guy is going to march off to his doom. The one branch that's hanging overhead that's all dark and blackened and casting those shadows, and just the fact that it's kind of gloomy, like it's like a gloomy deep forest with these random glows. There's so much nature and life in this. I love all the little details, right down to the design of the base of this guy's cloak. This card is fantastic. It represents, I think overall this represents a knight sense, like the start of a knight's quest. And I really, really, really enjoy the tie-in between Once Upon a Time. If it's the first thing you've done in a game, it's free. Because how should every fairy tale start? Once upon a time. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it. I love it. It's so brilliant, I almost swore. But I try not to do that in the videos because YouTube don't like that and goes, "Nuh-uh, son, we're not going to show your videos to people if you keep saying them naughty words." So I stick to swearing in my live streams and over on my other channel. 1 green, 1 colorless gives us Return to Nature, which is the next card we're going to talk about. Choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, exile target card from a graveyard. Long after the magic wore off, the mice still dreamed of glorious galloping, tales of the Fae. And if you watched yesterday's video, you would have seen we actually showed a pumpkin carriage. In this case, this is the pumpkin carriage being returned to nature. The idea is that whole Cinderella story where the fairy godmother turns a pumpkin into a carriage, turns mice into horses to draw the carriage along. And in this situation, the whole process has been reversed. The only thing that's left are the wheels, because obviously the artwork wouldn't make as much sense to people if they didn't put the wheels in there truthfully. So you've got the pumpkin, you've got the 2 mice running off in alternate directions as the magic returns them to their normal state and they're no longer compelled to be horses strapped to this carriage. It's late in the night, which makes perfect sense because that's exactly when Cinderella's fairy godmother magic got undone, right? It's like at the strike of midnight, when the clock strikes midnight, the enchantment will be undone. Now the flavor text adds a delightful dimension to this card. Long after the magic wore off, the mice still dreamed of glorious galloping. So even when returned to their normal form, they still remember their time as a horse and enjoyed the prancing and running that they did, galloping along, the power in their bodies. That is cool. That is a nice little touch. I enjoy it, and I like the look of the little bit of forest that's peeking out at the back of the artwork. Overall, this is a well-executed piece of art, and the flavor text only enhances it. Then we've got the Rowan from the Planeswalker deck. Rowan, Fearless Spark Mage. 2 red and 3 colorless for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. +1, up to 1 target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. -2, Rowan Fearless Spark Mage deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures can't block this turn. -9, gain control of all creatures until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. Otherwise known as an insurrection effect. So when we break down her abilities, the first one makes sense. When we take a look at her artwork, actually I really like this artwork. I like the whole, she's shown in this like red, this is Red Riding Hood to me. This is Rowan being shown as Red Riding Hood because we haven't seen any card that actually represents Red Riding Hood herself. It makes perfect sense. She's got this flowing red cloak. She's royalty, if you didn't know. Rowan is actually essentially a princess. And so she would have this sort of fine garb. Now, her sword is shown being illuminated and fused with electricity magic. What I like as well is you can see in the artwork, there are these gigantic spiky thorns all around her. She's almost framed by them. You can see them on the left and the right hand side. And I really like that because that illustrates a thematic element of the story, where in the story, she is against Oko. Because of Oko, I can't tell you all the things that Oko's done because the spoilers are being saved for my collaboration with Aetherhub. But suffice it to say, she is at odds with Oko. And these thorns encroaching around her in this dangerous manner illustrates that in a fantastic way. So you have her in a dark forest, lighting up and infusing her blade, and actually infusing the blade shows why the +1 ability works the way it does, where you can give a creature +3/+0 and first strike until end of turn. That would essentially be the equivalent of her infusing their blades with her lightning magic. Lightning strikes, that sort of thing, it makes sense why that would be first strike and a power boost. Now, you may be thinking she's holding someone else's sword here and infusing it, but if you actually look down near the hilt, you can see the weird kind of double-wrapped, warped hilt pommel kind of setup that she has on her own personal blade. So that's not someone else's sword she's holding, that's her own sword. The second ability is that she does 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures and they can't block. And that to me is her blasting them with lightning, and either the lightning shocks them and stuns them so that they're not able to act, or she's just scared them. But from the story, they have scenarios where Rowan and Will work together. Will uses his ice magic to make sure that people are coated in ice, and the watery nature of the ice makes the electricity more conductive, and so she's able to hit more people and stun them. So I think it's more of a stunning lightning ability that's going on here. And the -9 ability, in all honesty, I can't really come up with a way to make that fit flavorfully with Rowan. When I look at it, it feels tacked on. It feels like a good ability, but I see no way that Rowan would actually be able to take control of everybody's creatures. So for me, the first 2 abilities fit flavorfully with her. The third ability is very much tacked on and does not feel like it fits, but it is definitely a very feel-good effect and a nice ultimate for a Planeswalker to have. The next card is actually Rowan's Battleguard. 1 red, 3 colors for a 3/3 first striker. As long as you control a Rowan Planeswalker, she gets +3/+0. So it becomes 4 mana for a 6/3 first striker, which isn't terrible. It is by no means amazing, but it isn't terrible. The flavor text says, "This sword is sunrise, the other is dawn. They mark the beginning of my days, but the end of yours." That is some awesome, awesome flavor text. And this chick looks intense, standing there with both arms struck out in a defiant pose, holding 2 massive blades. I also really enjoy the fact that Rowan's ability is to give a creature +3/+0 in first strike. And when Rowan is out, it's like she's giving the +3 to this girl all the time. Like she's just infusing this chick's blades at all times. I also like the rain of embers that's coming down, and her cloak is very sheer. So you can see the light reflecting through it. You've got a castle shown kind of in the murky, in a little bit of murky sunset behind her. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be set at sunrise or at sunset, but either way, the overall flavor of this chick is pretty sweet, man. I like the fact that her hair is like swept back up in the wind too. Although I guess what's going on is those embers must be being blown back up around her. Maybe this was originally supposed to be a dragon rider or something. I don't know. I feel like there's something about her artwork. Like it looks like there's an updraft going on, right? Her hair is going upwards. The cloak is billowing up and backwards. There are a bunch of embers flying upwards. So I don't know. Is she leaping down from something? Or is she supposed to be borne aloft by a dragon that's descending? Is this possibly repurposed art? I mean, it's definitely got a Throne of Eldraine feel because the castle's in it. But what is this artwork was originally supposed to be? I wonder. Well, let's move on. Next up, we have Rowan Stalwarts. 1 red, 4 colors for 5/2 human knights. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Rowan Fearless Sparkmage, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle your library. So these are obviously a band of knights that serve under Rowan. I do like this whole like Rowan is in charge of knights. This speaks to me. Now, we don't actually know from the story, like the what's it called? The novel. The novel doesn't cover this. So to me, this is a point past the time of the novel where Rowan has come into more power, right? I assume that maybe Will and Rowan's parents have stepped down as the rulers of a castle, or just as adult like prince and princesses, they have been given princessi. They have been given their own knights who will quest for them and do other things. So this is a group of knights specifically subservient to Rowan. Now, it's really weird to note, like, their power and toughness is really weird. It's 5-2. A lot of knights tend to have 2 toughness on their own. And this is like, how many knights are even shown in this artwork? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a bare minimum of 5. And if you count the spears and the pennants that are hanging, there's probably like 7 or 8 knights in this group. And somehow they only have 2 toughness altogether. Obviously, they did this for balancing issues. But from a flavor perspective, it doesn't make any sense. It's very, very illogical. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what? So the artwork's cool, though. You can see them. They are off on a questing. They're a very tight-knit band, too, right? And you can see them. They're in front of a castle that they're departing from. The castle with all the dark clouds behind it has kind of a gloomy feel to it. It's almost like they are being sent out to quest in times of dire need. It certainly does a great job of showing a group of knights and the fanfare that would be involved with them heading along. They've got all their armored horses, a variety of different helmets and weapons wielded by them. Overall, not too shabby a piece of artwork. Not the most mind-blowing either. It's like, okay, it works. It's serviceable. Not amazing, but serviceable. After that, we've got Shambling Suit. 3 colors for a 0/3 artifact construct. And its power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts and or enchantments that you control. And the artwork shows this shambling suit of armor wandering through an incredibly misty, foggy, dense forest. You can see there's a gigantic, like, it's either a fallen tree or a massive tree root or something like that, that the shambling suit is stepping over. And actually, it looks like some of the vines are reaching up around it. I don't know if this was originally meant to be an artifact destruction spell and they repurposed it, because it really does look like nature is rising up and claiming it, and it looks all broken apart and rusted, with even some vines growing on the fingers. Although that could actually just be them growing on the shambling suit of armor. I mean, shambling sounds like it moves slowly, and if it's moving through like really misty kind of areas, then there's going to be moisture in the air for these plants to feed off of as well, right? And it's shown as a really old, rusty suit of armor. It's got a cool, it's almost like a ghost possessed suit of armor. You can see it striding along with that axe there. It's interesting to note that by itself it's just a 1/3, so that axe would be fairly dull. I mean, you read it as a 0/3, but it counts itself, right? So it's going to be a 1/3 bare minimum. But I am having a hard time getting past the fact that it looks like vines are reaching up from the earth and grabbing this thing. So it feels like this might be repurposed, like a repurposed artifact destruction spell. I don't know, though. I can't say that for certain, but it does give me that vibe. It works fine as a shambling suit of long forgotten armor that somehow some spirit or magic infused. Like maybe this is just some armor that's left over from a long ago battle. The body inside of it already rotted away. Animals came and took off with the bones, and then at some point the armor just got up and took on a life of its own, but it has no way to restore itself, so it's slowly degrading over time. Then we've got Wicked Guardian. 1 black, 3 colorless for a 4/2 human noble. When it enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. Some are born to greatness. You were born to scrub greatness's floors. So the flavor concept behind this is Cinderella's wicked stepmother, right? That's the idea behind this card. And I do actually really like the way the flavor of it's like, okay, you're taking advantage of Cinderella. You're using her as slave labor, and you're profiting off of that labor. And so that kind of is the idea of like doing 2 damage to somebody on your side, but you get to draw a card from it. That actually works pretty well. And when we take a look at the artwork, you can see the wicked stepmother with one of those big weird hats that you'd see in like Victorian times or in like an Alice in Wonderland fantasy kind of tale. And she has herself like a pet, it looks like a pet bat, but the pet bat is finely dressed. Like, you've got Cinderella there in the background. I don't know if you guys actually noticed her. She's there in the background scrubbing the floor in what looks like a mansion, while this woman is clutching, this old, ugly-looking woman is clutching her little bat pet in her arms in her finery. And in the background, you can see that there is a, there's some nice details. You got the big purple curtains. You've got the goblet pennant that's hanging on the wall there. Outside, maybe that's on the window shutter, or that might be on the building nearby to represent that they're in a rich neighborhood. But you can see the wealth based on the way that the woman is dressed, the massive curtains they have, the size and design of their home, and as well as having pillars with like vases and stuff on display. So it all comes together very well. And as an added note, somebody actually edited my face onto this artwork. So I'm going to throw that up real quick for a chuckle so you can appreciate the wicked Perpian. All right, my friends, let's move on. Next, we've got Wildwood Tracker. 1 green for a 1/1 elf warrior. Whenever it attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This one was wearing shoes made of glass. She'll be no ordinary prey. I like the flavor of this. I do enjoy this. I mean, 1 mana for a 1/1 may feel kind of underwhelming, and even with the +1/+1 that he gets, it's kind of like, it's not an overwhelmingly powerful card, but in terms of flavor, it's very, very cool. You can see him with this large fox companion that carries his gear. This is his mount. He rides a fox, and he is so adept at tracking fantastical things that he can actually tell the difference between whether you're wearing regular boots or that your shoes were made of glass. What sort of differences would you have to see in the footprints to know that the shoes were made of glass? Does glass not clump up, does it not clump up dirt the same way? Does it leave different impressions? Would it leave a more smooth indent? Do they not have any kind of treads on the bottom of glass shoes? There's so many things that this makes me wonder. And I love the vibrant red grass that he is crouched down in. This whole wolf rider elf tracking the quarry that are wearing glass slippers or glass shoes and stuff like that, that's pretty cool. I mean, this guy could tell from the tracks that it's a woman wearing glass shoes. How much do you have to understand, like, everything in terms of biology for different creatures to be able to have that level of accuracy? I love the flavor behind it. And the final spoiler we have, my friends, is Witch's Vengeance. Witch's Vengeance. So it's Witch's Vengeance, 2 black and a colorless for a sorcery that says creatures of the creature type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. And the flavor text says the hex swept through the village, its citizens falling one by one. So obviously it was humans that were selected, or perhaps was it peasants? Who knows? Either way, I like the flavor behind this. It's pretty interesting. The artwork is intense. You can see all of these like villagers bound together, and they all have what look like spectral blades hanging above their heads. Essentially, it's the doom of all of them. This witch curses a village, and all of a sudden, every person ends up with a glowing blade above their head. And you're just like, they're just like, hey, wait, what's that above your head? And then, what's that above my head? Oh God. And then all of a sudden, they just start plunging down into people, and people are collapsing to the earth left and right. Oh man, it's intense. It's intense artwork. It looks like in the background, you can actually see the streaks where some of these blades have already struck down on other villagers. Man, I love it. You have different people looking in different directions here, and every one of them has one of these glowing blades. And the glowing blades stand out so much because of how dark the artwork is. In all honesty, there are some pieces of art that I wish I could see bigger. But when spoilers come around, you can't get like full-sized, good resolution piece of the artwork. So I'm left between waiting until the entire set's already out and there are high quality resolution pictures, but that's not going to help when we want to talk about spoilers and flavors. So in some cases, I may miss some details. There are details that elude me because I don't have access to a massive overblown image. And at the end of the day, I am 40 years old, so I have a 40-year-old man's eyes, all right? They're not perfect. Now, that brings us to the end of this spoiler video, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this trip through some more Eldraine flavor. If you don't want to miss any of my videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube, but more importantly, that you join my Discord linked in the description below, because my Discord is where I announce all of my videos as well as all of my live streams. And that's actually where that picture of the edited me as the evil stepmother was placed. So we have fun in there as well. So get on in there, that way you won't miss anything that I do. If you want to help my channel grow, liking, commenting, doing that on the video tells YouTube that this is a good video. YouTube likes that. So go ahead and do that if you want to help me out. If not, no worries. I already got people helping me out. My patrons and channel members, for example. Big shout out to you guys. Thanks for the support. Now at the end of the video, I'm going to link the entire playlist of all my spoil lore videos, because I love that name, the spoil lore, because what we do here is a little bit different than your regular spoiler videos. And I'm also going to link the newest video from my other channel, which is a very funny video. I invite you to come on over to my other channel where we're having a wild, rowdy, but ultimately fun time. So thanks for being here, my friends, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow.